All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm really excited to announce our next speakers. They have done something really interesting in customizing the UI for Jira to help them prototype cars for Volkswagen. So please help me welcome Michael and Pilar up to the stage.
All right.
Hello, everybody. I am Pilar. I work in the Electronics Research Laboratory here in the Bay Area for the Volkswagen Group of America. I'm in charge of taking care of some of our small fleet with all those brands that you can see. We have some fancy toys over there, and we need to keep track of where they are and modify them for the research that we do at the laboratory. So we're going to give you a story of what we do, more or less, using Jira.
And I'm Michael McNeil. I'm the principal at Expium, and we are a partner, but we also build custom software. So we have a whole custom software development arm using both Angular and React as front ends, and we'll be talking about this particular application, which was kind of exciting for us because a number of us are car guys. I don't know if anybody else in here is a gearhead. If not, I won't distract any further with any of that stuff, but we enjoyed this project immensely.
So let me give you a little bit of the story how we started. As we're a research laboratory, we started using Jira in our software development teams. And they came with the idea like 3 years ago that we need to start using Jira to track all of our projects. And it really didn't take that long until our team started taking care of what is a Scrum, what is Jira or Jira, how do we pronounce it, what is Confluence. And maybe about roughly 2 3 weeks, the feelings about the tool were very clear. We just hate it. I personally hate it. And maybe some of you will feel that and feel free to either nod or say, yeah, me too, because it was a horrible experience facing a product that it's, in one hand, advertised as a state-of-the-art tool that will solve all of our problems in the car industry and so on, and not really understanding what was it about. Mm-hmm. So we had to take some advices and get into what we can do. In our team and the team that I'm working, we needed to track what are the cars, what is our fleet. We have many prototypes, we have many brands. We modify the cars because we prototype with them. We need to see who is driving it. We need to know what is it about the car and interact with our workshop and our engineers. And Jira didn't seem to be the right answer for us at the beginning. So let us guide you into our journey with the tool.
Yeah, from our perspective, we were kind of being warned that there was some hostility internally towards the tool. We had been engaged initially to kind of help kind of shore up some problems because they were running into the typical problems of looking at a tool that's this flexible and that can do so many things, and they were kind of getting themselves into a little bit of trouble with it. But also at the same time, they have a lot of really smart people, and you'll hear me mention that a couple of times. When you have a lot of smart people and you have a very flexible tool, a lot of things happen in that environment. So we were kind of engaged to kind of begin that process of getting the ship going the right direction, get everybody going the same way. We started early in January 2016. It started out with just some administrative assistance. We then moved into and talked to them about the need to actually get the team leads trained, get them to understand what the building blocks of Jira really look like. How do we put things together in a way that is manageable and sustainable in the organization? And then we actually moved into, we'll talk about this a little deeper in a minute, the defining of what we're trying to achieve with the tool. So moving from it being about the tool to being about the heart of the problem, which is helping them to achieve the work that they need to do where they're at. We then, through that process, identified a very specific need that required some custom development. And we actually, even though that was worked on for a few months, we actually went from concept to full production of the first version in 1 week of a full custom UI for Jira. So our organization, we're about rapid prototyping, deliver quickly, and iterate. So we walked in, and we first, in the training element, we actually set up this class. And we had a lot of expectations going in. We had some conversations to be able to prep, and was actually warned about the force that is Pilar in the organization. So there was some prep there. She's quiet here on stage, but she was not quiet in the class. And but yet, it was her intensity was about being successful, and that allowed us to begin to tear apart the problem and begin to put together a solution. So the class dynamic, we actually had about 5 different groups in the class. Pilar's was one of them, and I cannot emphasize enough, it was a very enjoyable intellectual exercise to work with so many smart people and to dig into so many different problems with folks that have a very deep understanding of technology. I mean, they're dealing with some of the most complex pieces of equipment that exist, dealing with some of the autonomous driving and all of the sensor arrays and software and hardware and fuels, and it's just a very complex environment that they work in. And that was all very, very strong, and really got us engaged in a lot of dialogue. But we had a purpose, and our purpose was to focus on the heart of the problem. And so we actually were able to take and move them back to how do we use this tool to increase productivity, to make things work, to get the teams to where they can not think about the tool and they can think about what they're trying to achieve. And we did this through many side sessions, and Pilar's group took over the front of the room. Because as I mentioned, she did have a force of personality, and she was going to solve her problem. And I'll let her talk a little bit more about this.
So you can see in the picture that even our certified technicians were taking a class about Jira. That proves that you don't need to be a hardcore coder or developer to understand and be able to create your own workflow. So the team that you see there is actually our IT department, our technicians trying to understand how can a normal service of a car be a workflow. They're used to just go to the car and put oil, maybe build some prototypes, but now it becomes a workflow. How can we handle that? Is that even feasible? How can we, in a workshop team, interact with this? And through the bootcamp, we learned that it is possible. It is actually possible that we can manage our product, that we can track the work that we do in the car, that we can see who is driving the car, that we can even know which bay of the workshop I can use. So we start brainstorming some ideas, and the more we did, the more we could actually see into the system. And more people were interacting with that. And this bootcamp not only gave us the opportunity to learn from ourselves and our own processes and modify our own processes in our own benefit, but to be capable to do something that is tangible for all of us. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that we do is very complex. All the sensors that we need to put in the cars of the first generations of autonomous driving, and where do we do these? Where did we put this sensor? Where is this asset that we purchase? Because we're a big corporation. And back in the days, we were just using an Excel table, sometimes papers, and tracking more cars, more prototypes, more brands became a challenge. So it was obvious for us that we need to do something different. And right now, you can see that we have some sensors. This is very visible, but some of the new cars out there are completely autonomous, and you don't see the sensors. So they have many components or many software versions that we need to keep track of it. As a matter of fact, maybe I can show you something of what we are currently doing.
Well, you haven't shown me. There were there were whole aspects of this environment that we could not even get close to.
Just to give you an idea of what we track, let's give it a try. Let's give it a try.
Yeah.
No. Oh, never mind. We have prototypes, and we cannot show you the prototypes, guys. Sorry about that. But in reality, behind that, We do a lot of software, hardware modifications, special assets that we need to manage. We need to track who is driving the car. We need to track how many mileage we have. We need to track weather environment where we put the car. And everything is possible now within our application. However, yet Jira had to prove that it's really the tool that everybody wanted to sell. And we face a lot of hesitation from many people saying, I don't want to use Jira just to see where the car is. I don't want to see all this big screen to tell me how many miles I have been driven. So those also were the challenges in which we said, OK, we can use Jira as our background. We can build our own workflows, but we need to provide with an interface, not only for the engineers, not only for the people doing software, but also for our project managers, also for the rest of the people joining. How can we make it easier? And that's when we have some support from our colleagues at XPM.
So let's talk about the solution, and then we'll give you guys a little demo of what the software looks like today. So first, we had a choice to make, because this was all about the front end. So which JavaScript framework do we use? It's do you use Angular? Do you use React? We happen to work with both. We're deeply partnered with the Google team, so we use a lot of Angular. But in this situation, React seemed like to be the best choice because we knew from Atlassian that down the line, this was post the announcement that they were going to be building the components in React for use by add-on vendors and others. We knew they were already going down that path. It's kind of funny, a couple of Atlassians even attended our Angular boot camp and had some discussions about the two platforms in that. But we decided to go with React, and so we started to explore with them, and we started to build some requirements, and we set up the architecture in this way. Originally, the middle tier was Java Spring Boot, just because of some internal work that had already gone on. But the application today is using React as the front end. It's using a Node application as a middle tier, and then using Java or using Jira as a pure back end. This was the quickest pathway to success, and like I mentioned before, we actually took we had one of our developers come on site, work with one of the developers internally. He showed up on Monday midday, and they delivered into production, and on Friday, wasn't it? Like, was it midday or was it at the end of the day? So it was really a 4.5 day effort to actually get the application into production, and it was being used by the team starting the next week. So we have data on the vehicles that has been captured since that time. And over that time, there's been iteration. There's been some other developers internally. One of them is here to work on the application. But getting the fundamental pieces in place was not the monumental task that many people assume that it is. We actually literally put a custom UI in front of Jira. The users don't log into Jira. I mean, they log into Jira, but they don't use the Jira screens. They're not interacting with the issue screen. They're not seeing items on their in their UI that don't relate to the automobile. And that was one of the key things that we were hearing from management.
And there were different elements and different type of people using it. So we have different brands, different styles, different projects to take care. And just to give an idea, more or less, we have our engineers happy. They know how to use Jira. They are not afraid of that. But they can easily track the history of a vehicle. They can be a regular user that wants to book a vehicle. Even though it's a prototype, they know all the structure and all the rules that are behind it. And if it requires certain approval, because it could be a Bentley, and not anyone can drive the Bentley, all those rules are clear and transparent for everyone. At the same time, our technicians receive a work order that they know what to do. It goes into the Jira issue. It keeps track of what was the work done. The engineer can go and see if they need to update a software or a hardware, and everything is communicated, even overseas. At the same time, the manager wants to know statistics. Who is working in this car? Which type of projects? how many miles has the car been driven? Where is right now this car? Even the license plate. We can track everything in Jira right now. And if a manager or if an engineer requires an additional field that we haven't thought about that, it takes 10 minutes to put it into the system and update it and provide with all the statistics that we need. Even better, our technicians, they can come with improvement of the process. We can implement that process. We can put their needs, like type of engine, type of tire, oil filter, anything that you can think about, we can put it in there, and they can even know in which bay of the workshop I'm going to work today. Do I need a charger? Is this an electric vehicle? We can have everything at one glance. And the reason why we wanted to do this, we are a research laboratory, but why do we want to have this custom database user? Well, at the ERL, we have a motto, and the motto is innovate to drive change. And we don't need to innovate just the car, but our processes as well. We need to make the change and drive that change, moving from old Excel tables and tracking files in someone's computer to make it in an environment that everyone can see, to make reporting easy and quickly, to include everyone at different levels into a custom field, for example. And that's what is keeping us there. So we are now driving the change in a simple task that can go further and beyond. And the application, we have been calling it the application, we call it the UFO because it's a unified fleet organizer. So from cars, we move to UFOs. And just to give you an idea, what are we doing? Maybe we can have the demo on.
Yep. So a couple of comments here. We're going to run through. This isn't everything that the application does. We had to get approval from Volkswagen to be able to show, and some parts we can't show. And the last thing we want is something to be on the internet for a new car based on what we showed at an Atlassian conference. So we're going to show pieces here. This is kind of a combination of an asset tracking system with a fleet management system. And if you've ever worked with either of those kinds of systems, they have very different needs. So merging those two was a bit of a challenge. But I'll let Pilar discuss what's going on with the application here.
So this is our UFO. And inside our UFO, we have different types of vehicles. And any user can easily reserve, put the justification in the background. Our workflow will run the approval processes depending on the time, the car, the person, the team. We build our own rules, then the approval goes, and then the car can be picked up automatically and will be released only for this person upon approval. Some of the things that we can also do here is for the manager to see, or anybody else, like the details on the car. If you are interested in doing a project in this car, maybe it will take you to run a software update and the testing. A couple of weeks, you can reserve the car, and you can see who has it, and you can talk to these people. It's everything transparent without kind of like email interaction, and everything is in the background. You can filter if you want to use a particular car. If you are in a particular brand, if you want one brand to look at your other car, you can also use the tool to see what would be happening after. No? So you have like all the possible information that you want to have in the car available at one glance. And this made many people happy. They actually cannot believe that this is running with Jira in the background. It was a very positive feedback that we have on that.
So next, we also have an element here that had to be integrated in, which are their garage spaces. And they have multiple spaces where they do work on the cars, and they'll upgrade sensors and do maintenance work, et cetera, and other testing work. So there's an aspect of the application related to that.
So we wanted to have a view of our workshop, and we have different areas of the workshop, and what can we be doing, and who is working on that? Can I just go there? I'm having an interview, and I would like to show our workshop, but if there is a prototype that cannot be seen, it's under a certain confidentiality level. I may not go there, or it may be blocked, et cetera, et cetera. Or many of our testing team, they are driving on the road, they want to bring the car inside, and sometimes it's full, the garage. With this application, they can see, hey, I would like to reserve because I have a broken tire, or my software requires an update, or many other things that we need to move on. And this is also used mostly for our technicians, but many people over there that interacts with the workshop, with the areas, just to show a demo, they can use it immediately. Even our visitors, they can have a glance what is happening in our garage. At the same time, we can provide statistics to our management about the usage of our space, of our tools, of everything that we have around.
So the other part of this is what's happening in the back end in Jira. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. This is a little hard to read. Some of that is intentional, but there should be should be sanitized completely. But you see, this looks more like a traditional issue screen. So this is where some of the core team will interact and use the data, report on the data, build reports, et cetera. So we're tracking in fields all of the attributes of the vehicle, and they track these vehicles from the date of creation until the date of destruction. So these vehicles do not continue to exist, and they have to track this. They have to understand where the technology is. You know, they're dealing with NDAs and other intellectual property from various partner companies and subsidiary companies. So all this is being integrated in here, and it's very important that it be tracked. And then we have, we can have images, and these, the attachments. That could be a bill of material, it could be an image of a vehicle, it could be lots of things associated with a vehicle. And maybe some details on one of the sensor arrays or something like that. Lots of opportunities for attachments to this particular vehicle, and it needs to be something that's associated with the vehicle. And then we have what you see the next section, which is the issue links. And then below that, we have subtasks. And I want to talk about that because the front-end application, the node application that the front-end application is talking to is handling the creation of all the appropriate issue links and the creation of subtasks and the proper naming and all the detail that goes into those. So we're creating all that detail behind the scenes, so that when they do go into something down the line like portfolio, all of the connectivity is there. When they're doing reporting, all of the connectivity is there. And we had some important decisions to make about how this was put together. And so the issue link area is things that are being done to the car. So they're tracked in other projects. It might be one of the garage projects, so that it's a maintenance item, or it could be another research project where it's another sensor array or some upgrade to the infotainment system or something like that. Those are tracked as issue links. And then subtasks are things that are done with the car. So they go on a test drive, or it's being used at a photo shoot, a photo op, or it's being delivered to somebody for testing, or it's being taken out for the weekend for a long run. Those things are all identified as subtasks. And when all of that gets created, then this across 120 vehicles or so, roughly.
No.
At least they've been acknowledged so far. You start to build a picture of what's happening. And so I think what this is going to yield for them down the line is more of an understanding of what aspects of the organization are impacting what. And so I've even heard comments, and this is my comment, not necessarily their comment, but I've heard comments from them about the brand identities of the various brands that they support within the Volkswagen Group, and there's tension sometimes there between those brands, and this is a great way for them to be able to express, hey, here's what we did for you, in detail, and it's not I'm dragging out this spreadsheet from this group, and I've got these emails from this group and put it together. Here it is. Here's your vehicles, here's what we did, and here's exactly what happened as a part of this development process. So any other comments you want to make about the Jira side of this and how you've been using it?
No, many people here may be familiar with this type of screen. and you understand what is it about. But half of the people in our laboratory, when they see this, they are just like, oh, I don't want to see it. But when they see our application, the design that it has, so clean, it was our own design. We made it for ourselves, with our colors, with our brands. That is the difference and change everything. They forget about this view. And it's possible. We can interact with it. Anyone can do it. And it was kind of like a magic. So that hate that we had in the past changed completely. So we have a better version of ourselves after that.
So one of the core messages here is that customization really does work. This is actually a picture of Jack, who could not be here today, but he's our internal developer that went on site and built this thing in 4 days. He's very talented, and I wanted to definitely include him in the presentation, even though he couldn't be here. But the real message here is that customization does work. Jira does not have to stop at the boundary of its own UI. The API has been created for a reason. There's a reason why there's 3,000 add-ons or apps in the marketplace. And even customers, end users, we regularly teach them how to take these steps with their own development teams. Because many of your organizations will have an internal development team, and you will have a need with Jira with just a small amount of coaching. Most development teams can take hold of this and run with it. Especially if you have an experienced front-end team that's already working with some JavaScript framework. Could be Elm, Aurelia, could be Angular, React, it could be about anything. And it will work in this kind of an architecture. So let's talk about the benefits of this going forward.
So the benefit at the end of the day, it's our customer. And if you happen to have an Audi, or if you happen to have a Volkswagen Jetta or a Golf, it has some Jira in its ADN, let's put it this way. And it's not necessarily in the automotive part that it has there, but in the process to bring it to our customer. So the process is so simple that it allows us to focus on more important things, like the software, like the car itself, like our customer enjoying driving the car. I cannot tell you how much it has changed the culture in our organization, how much it has impacted overseas, just a simple trick into an application like Jira. And it's used all over the world in the entire company. And just the fact that we're using it with a little bit of a trick has changed a lot. So our benefit, as I said before, is this story of hate and drama and a hero rescuing us and showing us how to use it to just the happily ever after. We can go back to work tomorrow, and it's going to be just simple. We don't have to deal with all these long Excel list and see where the car is, or who has the keys, where are the keys of the car. Just as simple as that. And then we can focus on better products. That's the biggest benefit for us.
So, well, we have observed some benefits externally of their teams as well. As we've gone through this process, the question stopped being, how do I do this with a custom field, to being, how do I tackle this bigger task? How do I do this really important initiative that would really build efficiency within the organization? It would really improve their ability to serve their customers. The conversation changed, and we've seen that with a number of our clients, and that is actually an objective of ours. If we can get the expertise in-house to be able to maintain the tool, to curate the tool, to manage all the pieces that get involved when you're dealing with thousands of projects and thousands of users. When you start getting that in place and you get kind of out of the weeds and start being able to focus on how the tool can make a difference, that's when some of the objectives that are out there that Atlassian touts about team, et cetera, those really do happen. And it's been exciting to see Volkswagen make that transition. They made that transition faster than most of our clients. Simply because they are a group of really sharp people. We have had a great experience working with them. We've enjoyed, every time we've been on site, and they even got me drinking coffee, which was a trick according to my wife. So